Welcome to Detroit. Doesn't matter if you have one ass cheek and 3 toes. I will beat your ass. You can drown them. And that's what we gotta be. That's who we have to be. Because that's our domain. That is our domain. Because we'll tread water as long as it takes to fucking bury you.
Takes the snap, turns, gives to Montgomery, right side, end zone, touchdown, Detroit Lions! Yes.
We are driven by Detroit.
Hello, Detroit Lions friends, fans, and family members. Welcome on back to yet another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. I'm your host, David T. Pike. And as always, we're diving on in. So folks, this is an episode that I've given a lot of thought on. It's an episode that I feel kind of compelled to do because I don't really see a whole lot of content talking about this topic that we're going to have. But when it is talked about, it's usually very broad, vague. It doesn't really go into a whole lot of details. It's just kind of like a gloss over, if you will. And for me, if you're going to have a conversation about this topic that we're about to have, I feel that you have to go deeper. You have to be more specific. You have to be able to show what it is you're trying to get across and convey to people. Now, what exactly is this topic about? Well, let's first and foremost understand that when it comes to NFL teams, they often have to juggle with a series of decisions, very complex decisions, and they have to weigh several factors when it comes to decisions of this nature, such as short-term reward, long-term stability, return on investment. These are all concepts that the NFL franchises have to make and have to have some sort of understanding about what they're getting into when they're making decisions. And the decisions that I'm specifically referring to when we're talking about this are those of player acquisition and retention. And when we're talking about player acquisition and retention, the decisions that specifically fall into that category can be ones that can either make or break franchises depending upon how a team front office will actually handle its business. Now, inevitably, team front offices are going to run into one of two problems when it comes to acquisition and retention of players. First way they're going to run into a problem is what I would like to call the instant regret of investment method. The second way is what I call the gradual pinch of finances. Pretty much what I'm saying here is, one is, okay, you know what, we're screwed and we're already seeing this is not a good decision that we made. The other method is what I would call death by 1,000 paper cuts. It's like, listen, it stings, we're not going to be killed right away, but if we don't do something to eventually change this problem, we're going to be in some trouble. Now, when we're talking about instant regret decisions, those deals absolutely are horrendous deals. They're terrible. And it's usually with deals like, most recently I can think of guys like Deshaun Watson, Brock Osweiler, Albert Haynesworth. These are guys where it becomes abundantly clear almost immediately that the deal that they were given was a bad one. And for the team, trying to get out of that deal is going to be almost next to impossible without some sort of repercussions, especially financial ones. These deals they're devastating, and in most cases, they're what I'd like to call almost guaranteed franchise killers. There's very few exceptions to that rule. The only thing I can think of in recent memory where it would be an exception is how the Broncos were able to get rid of, Russell Wilson, and then as soon as they got rid of him, they brought in their next quarterback in Bo Nix, and so far, it looks like they made the right one, and that, hey, you know what? They're on the right track now. But usually, that does not happen. Usually, once you make a decision like what they did with Russell Wilson, it will take years before you're now in a position to where, okay, now we can start building and moving forward. So, instant regret when it comes to player acquisition, retention, whatever you want to call it. The second method is, as I said, the gradual one, the one where it's kind of like death by 1,000 little paper cuts, because it's like, okay, there will be times where you will have players who will play extremely well, and hey, you know what? We're going to reward them. We're going to give them contracts. But then all of a sudden it's like, hey, we're getting into a point here where the finances are starting to get a little thin. Things are getting a little bit tighter. Now we're kind of running into a drying up of our financial resources here. And now it's like, okay, what does the team do? How does the team handle that? Well, when we're talking about the NFL, the primary way that you can manage a situation where you have this gradual drying up of funds is you will do what is known as a restructure. You will talk to a player or players, and what you'll do is you will then try to restructure deals to lessen cap burden, to lessen the hit of whatever cap is affecting you for the year that you're in. And let me just call for what it is. There is no franchise that has ever been able to figure a workaround for this. And the reason I'm saying that is because the Lions right now, they currently find themselves kind of getting into that territory, perhaps for the first time in their history. Why? Well, let's understand how we got here. The Lions have become one of the most powerful teams in the NFL over the last couple of years, and they've done that through, again, smart player acquisition and also excellent development of their rookies. But while that's great, that has led them to now have all of these great players, and a lot of these players that they've gotten, that they've drafted, they've acquired, they have shown that they have definitely earned new deals. The issue is, of course, that cap space is not unlimited. This is not Madden where you can just turn the cap space off and sign players to whatever you want. That's not real life. And when you have that the Lions have already made significant investments in several other players prior to the players that I'm talking about, and those cap hits are either coming due or they're about to come due, okay, it's now like, okay, how do we manage the guys that we have upcoming that we still want to keep, but we need to pay them, even though our cap space is drying up and we've already handed out a boatload of money to other people? Again, the answer to that question that, a lot of people are now worried about whether or not the Lions can keep the team together that they've built, the answer to that question primarily revolves around the art of restructuring. And what I'm trying to get at here with this episode is that the Lions, going into the near future here, they're going to have to restructure at least one deal that they've handed out over the last couple of years. And what I'm specifically referring to here is going back to the 2023 season and the 2024 season. What I'm specifically referring to is the 2024 off season, so the end of 2023 and then going into 2024. During that time frame, the Lions made an absolutely staggering amount of investments by handing 5 contracts to really, really key players. Again, let's just go down memory lane here. That offseason that we're talking about, and then going into the 2024 season, the Lions gave Taylor Decker a new contract, 3 years, $60 million. They gave Aleem McNeil a contract of 4 year, $97 million. They gave Penei Sewell a 4 year, $112 million contract. They gave Amon-Ra St. Brown a 4 year, $120 million contract. And they gave Jared Goff a 4 year, $212 million contract. Now, all of those players I just mentioned more than earned those contracts, and they've more than lived up well past the value of the contract that they've already signed. But again, the issue isn't that, the players are not playing up to their extensions. They definitely are. The problem is, the issue is that we have more players that are now coming right behind them that need extensions. Primarily Hutch, Jamo, Gibbs, Laporta, Branch. These are all guys that are coming up in the queue, and it's like, okay, we've got guys that we've got to pay here, and we've got to figure out a way to make it work. Now, when we're talking about salary cap, one thing we know about salary cap is every year virtually it increases. The only time it has not increased, at least in recent memory that I can think of, was in the 2021 season when COVID was going on. But since 2021, the cap has just gone astronomically up every single year. But the Lions cannot just rely on the fact that the cap space is going to go up like it normally does. They have to find other ways to open up more cap without losing players that they already currently have. And for that, as I said earlier, restructuring contracts is the best way to do so. Now, what exactly is restructuring? Restructuring, what that typically means is that a portion of a player's salary is then going to be, converted and paid out as a cash bonus. By doing that, it instantaneously frees up cap space, and then the remainder of the money and, how they pay out the bonus is then prorated, and it's spread out over the years of the deal, including the year that they're currently in. Now, when we're talking about those deals that I just mentioned, Taylor, McNeil, Sewell, St. Brown, and Goff, there is only one deal that really makes any sense at the current moment of trying to do a restructure on, and that's Jared Goff's deal. And there's a reason why. Number one, Jared Goff's deal is the biggest one of the entire group. 4 years, $212 million. That's a massive deal. But at the same time, it makes sense doing that restructure with Goff because Goff is the player leader of the team. He's the franchise quarterback. He's the face of the franchise. Again, if you're wanting to set an example, if you're wanting to set a leader to go and say, hey, this is what we need to do, there's no better person to, establish that than the quarterback. And for me, it makes sense why you would choose Goff for a couple of other reasons. The other reason is that, as we've seen in the past, quarterbacks have typically been one of those player positions that, hey, you know what? Teams will go to and ask for restructures. They will ask for ways to make the cap burden lighter for them. And one of the best examples that I can think of in recent memory of a player that's done this quite a bit was Tom Brady. Over the years of his career, Tom Brady took multiple restructures. He took multiple pay cuts to help out his team to have more cap space. I believe that Jared Goff is very much within that same vein of thought process because Goff himself has pretty much echoed the exact same things that Brady has said in the past. He's like, listen, all I care about is winning. Yes, players want to get paid. They have to earn a living somehow. But I guarantee you this, if you were to tell Goff that, hey, you know what? If you were to able to restructure this, we could then do whatever we needed to win a Super Bowl. He'd sign off on it, no problem. Because Goff doesn't care about money anywhere near as much as it comes to winning a Super Bowl. Goff himself has said, he's like, listen, I've earned more than enough money to be comfortable for the rest of my life. All I care about is winning now. And that's virtually what all the players on the entirety of the Lions team are about. It's like, listen, yeah, we want to get paid. But what we care about more is winning a Super Bowl. And so this whole thing with a restructure for Goff is something that I think is absolutely going to happen because, one, his contract has the most ability to make a positive impact in that regard, but Goff has also other parts of his contract that make it to where it doesn't matter if they give him a restructure or not. He doesn't have to worry about, security because, oh, that's right, Goff has a no trade clause in his contract. So if he takes a restructure deal, he doesn't have to worry about anything happening unless the Lions release him outright, which they're not going to do that because, when you restructure a deal, the money that was prorated, as I was just talking about earlier, yeah, that gets added to the other years of the deal, including the one that you're in, which means more money is going to get moved elsewhere. So it would not be a smart decision for the Lions to do that in the first place. But my whole point is this. Goff has the security that he's already looking for, so asking him for a restructure is not going to be a problem. But since we're talking about a restructuring of Goff's contract to help open up cap space, let's look at Goff's current deal, and this is coming from Over the Cap. And if you go to Over the Cap and you take a look at a player's particular contract, or if you even take a look at a team's entire roster of contracts, you can do a couple of things to change it. You can do what is known as pre-June cuts. You can do post-June 1 cuts. You can do renegotiations, extensions, restructures, the whole 9 yards. Well, I'm going to show you what exactly happens when you restructure Goff's deal according to Over the Cap. If you take a look at 2025, 26, 27, and 28, you're going to see a whole bunch of green numbers that are going to be in the cap savings area. Well, the biggest number in that entire group is in 2026. If the Lions restructure Goff's contract, and they do it primarily for 2026, the Lions would be saving an astronomical $40.275 million in cap space that year. I mean, dude, that's a really big important factor here. Why? Because everybody's concerned about next year. Because next year, according to the freaking cap calculators from places like Spot Rack and Over the Cap and all that nonsense, the Lions are going to be over the cap next year. So, wait a minute here. I just showed you that if the Lions restructure Goff's deal in 2026, they could save up to $40.5 million in essence. It actually would be, if we want to be honest, it'd be closer to about it'd be about $40 million and a quarter. But still, you're talking $40+ million worth of cap space that would just be instantaneously saved. So that right there is a big incentive for the Lions. And it's also a big incentive for Goff too, because, oh, that's right. If they restructure that contract, that means he's getting a $40 million cash payout bonus. I mean, I don't know about you, but anybody's going to take $40 million no matter what. I mean, I'll take $40 million every day. That's just easy money right there. And again, for the Lions, it provides immediate and immense cap relief. Because let's just consider this. I just talked about the $40.275 million if the Lions were to restructure his deal in 2026. Or for 2026, however you want to put it. If you take a look at the cap calculators, specifically Over the Cap right now, they are predicting that the Lions are going to be at $54.4 million over the cap in 2026. But there's a bit of an error with that number. Number one, it's not factoring in Frank Ragnow's retirement just yet, which I am factoring that in. Because if you go to the exact same cap calculator and you put Ragnow as a post-June 1 cut, which is about as close as what you're going to have for an option for a retirement, what you're going to see is that number drops drastically. And I will show you that here in a minute. But let's just stick with that 54.4 because that is the actual number right now. Well, think about it here. Goff's $40.275 million cap saving from the restructure of that $54.4 million, that is 74% of the cap that you have to work against coming right off the bat. So think about that. 3/4 of the cap that the Lions would be over for 2026 would be instantaneously gone. I mean, that right there is a pretty damn big incentive. But again, as I stated earlier, the salary cap has also dramatically increased over the last couple of years. Again, if you take a look at how the cap has increased from 2021 all the way up to current year 2025, the salary cap has gone up almost $20 million plus every single year. If you take a look at your baseline year of 2021, the salary cap that year was at $182.5 million. The next year in 22 was at $208.2 million. The year after that in 23 it was at $224.8 million. 2024 it was at $255.4 million, and this year currently it's at $279.2 million. That means that from 2021 to 2025, the salary cap increased $25.7 million going into 2022. It increased $16.6 million going into 2023, $30.6 million going into 2024, and $23.8 million going into the current year. If you add that up and just do a simple average calculation, that means the salary cap has jumped on average $24.2 million every stinking year. And the percentage increase from year to year, again, is also very significantly high. In 2022, it jumped up 14.8%, or 14.08% from the previous year. In 2023, it jumped up to almost 8% from the previous year. In 2024, it jumped up 13.61% from the previous year. And for 2025, it jumped up 9.32% from 2024. The average for that means that every single year on average, the salary cap is jumping about 11.25%. So, okay, if you consider those numbers that I just put out there, I can say with reasonable expectation that for 2026, the salary cap is probably going to jump up at least another $20 million. So let's do some quick math here. I already stated that if you take a look at over the cap, they have the Lions at $54.4 million over the cap for 2026. But again, that's not factoring in Ragnow's retirement. If you factor in his retirement, that number dramatically drops down to 41.6. By Ragnow just retiring, that shaves off almost freaking $13 million in cap. So, okay, we're not dealing with 54.4 anymore. Now we're dealing with 41.6 over. Well, wait a minute here. What was Goff's restructure? Restructure gain for 2026? Oh, that's right, 40.275. So just from the restructuring of Goff's contract in 2026, you've almost broke even. Then you take a look at what I just showed with the cap space jumping up what it's been every single year for the last 4 years, which is about $20 million plus. Okay then. So add an estimated $20 million going into 2026. If you do that quick math, that means then if the Lions restructure Goff's contract in 2026 and the cap grows another $20 million, the Lions actually going into next year should have almost $19 million in cap space just by doing some very, very simple basic math and just understanding salary cap a little bit. Now, $19 million under the cap, that's not great, but it sure as hell ain't bad either. I mean, that's at least a decent amount of cap space. It's more than enough to sign a draft class, and it's definitely enough to make a couple of moves. Not anything major, but at least a couple of moves. But this then leads me into the final way that the Lions can, again, get that cap number up. Because, again, one thing that a lot of Lions fans and, hell, a lot of NFL fans still don't understand is there is now known what is called rollover cap. And rollover cap is exactly like it sounds. It is cap that was unused from the previous season that is then rolled over into the next fiscal year. That's why it's called rollover cap. Another way you could call it would be, what's the word? A bleeding effect, if you will. Bleeding effect cap would be another way I would call it. But rollover cap just comes off the tongue easier. But just think about this. The Lions currently, right now, again, if you factor in Frank Ragnow's retirement, they have like $49 million in cap space. If you factor in Frank Ragnow's retirement. So just think about this here. If the Lions were to take some of that money they're getting back from Frank Ragnow's retirement and, renegotiate a contract with Alex Anzalone, which a lot of people expect they're going to do, and potentially decide that they were going to bring back Zadarius Smith, okay, now let's say you have $40 million even for where you're at, which is exactly where they're pretty much at right now, without factoring in Ragnow's retirement. So, okay, you have about $40 million of rollover cap from 2025 going into 2026. And again, because of the renegotiation, potentially bringing in Zadarius Smith, that $19 million that you would have had in 2026 is probably now dropped down to like 13 or 15 mil. So think about this here for a minute. if you have $40 million of rollover cap from 2025, and with Goff's restructuring and the increase in the salary cap for 2026, you should have about 13, 15 million already sitting there in the bank. So 40 plus 13 or 15, that means you're going to have for 2026, if you just follow these very basic steps, the Lions could have anywhere between $53 to $55 million in cap space going into 2026. And that's before they've drafted anybody or signed anybody in free agency. I mean, let's just call it what it is. $53 to $55 million, that's more than enough money to extend guys like Hutch, Jamo, Gibbs, Laporta, and Branch. So when I take a look at what I'm presenting here, the Lions could show once again that, hey, you know what? We are committed to Goff. Because if you're going to restructure Goff's contract, again, that means you are definitely committing to him on the back end of a contract, because that means more of that cap space that you're converting in the current year is going to get pushed to the later parts of that contract, which means the Lions are going to have less of an opportunity if, and I'm not saying that they would, but if they wanted to release him. It pretty much guarantees Goff's security with the team even further, even more so than the fact he has a no-trade clause. So it would make Goff happy because, one, massive payday, even more security in his position with the team. It would make the Lions happy because it gives them a massive cap relief of, burden that they're dealing with right now. And it allows them to sign players that they're trying to sign. And it keeps the team together. So, I mean, I don't see a reason why this couldn't possibly work. And again, this would literally fall right in with what guys like Tom Brady have done in the past. That's why I have part of my title for my thumbnail image being, following in the hallowed footsteps, or, following within that, that lineage, because it's like, listen, quarterbacks that are willing to take less or that are willing to help out their teams, those are the quarterbacks that win, because they realize, listen, I can't be the guy that's making all the money. Money has to go elsewhere. And trust me, Goff is one of those guys that understands that. And Goff is definitely, if the Lions come to him and ask him for a restructure, I have no doubt in my mind he would agree to it in a heartbeat. I, in fact, have no doubt in my mind if they were to come to most of the guys on their team, they would agree in a heartbeat. That's why when I look at the whole cap situation that most people are concerned about, it's like, listen, I just presented to you one way where literally we could turn a $40-some-odd million over the cap into a $55 million under the cap situation, and literally it would take like 2 or 3 moves. That's literally all it would take. So, yeah, the cap is a little bit interesting to figure out, but once you have a basic understanding of it, it actually is not that complicated. And that's why when I take a look at this, it's like, listen, I'm not worried about the Lions situation. If they do exactly what I think they're going to do, they're going to have more than enough ample room with their coffers to make this team, how do I want to say it? They're going to be able to have more than enough room to keep the team together. I have no doubt about that in my mind. That's why when I hear everybody worrying about what's going on or what's going to happen in the future, it's like, listen, folks, just let Brad Holmes, Dan Campbell, Mike Disner, and all the rest of them do what they're going to do. Because if I'm seeing this with just what basic knowledge I have, I guarantee you this, they're seeing a whole hell of a lot more than that. And they probably got more ways to make money appear than what I can think of. So again, this is just the biggest and best idea that I could come up with that would really help the Lions out almost instantaneously. And again, I have no doubt in my mind that it could happen and very well might happen. But anyway, folks, I just wanted to talk about this. I hope it was something that you guys enjoyed. And having said that, I'm going to end the episode and say thank you all for watching another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. If you like what you saw, by all means, I highly encourage y'all to watch the next episode. Also encourage y'all to do one of these 3 things: like, comment, and subscribe. If by chance you subscribed in the past and you forgot to do so at the time, I want to highly encourage y'all, please make sure you hit that bell notification icon so you guys never miss any more content I push out. Also want to encourage y'all, please, to share this content with your Lions friends and family members. Share here on YouTube, share it on Twitter, share it on Facebook, share it anywhere and everywhere you possibly can. The more we can share it, the greater the reach, the greater the channel can grow and spread. And again, I hope you all enjoyed the content. Hope I was able to give you guys a new perspective, some new information, shed some light on this situation. It's what I try to do with every piece of content I create. Also, hope everyone has something in their life that makes them happy, makes them smile. God bless, my friends, And until the next time we meet, I'll see you all in the next episode.